Your organisation put out a statement today saying through a tortured interpretation of the law, history and current day reality, today's decision threatens to make higher education less accessible, less equitable and less attainable for students of colour. How does it do that?
Well, it did it in the most curious and disingenuous way of injustice that you can have in interpreting, constitutional provisions. Our Equal Protection Clause was adopted in the 1860s following a civil war over the enslavement of Black people solely because of their race. There weren't individuals that they were singling out. They were trying to enslave all Black people in America. And so the Equal Protection Clause aimed to help address that issue. It has both an anti-subjugation intent and an intent to provide equal opportunity. Yet our Supreme Court today reached a decision suggesting that the Equal Protection Clause requires pure color blindness. And the way that the court has interpreted this means that universities can only in very, very limited circumstances possibly consider race after this ruling, and it's a great setback to the progress that we've made as a multiracial democracy as we try to hold ourselves out.
What about the argument admissions should be based on merit and not based on race?
Yeah, there's no evidence in the record that any student at UNC or Harvard was admitted because of their race. Race at Harvard is one of over 100 factors, along with academic grades and standardized test scores.
So do you dispute groups like the Asian American Coalition for Education, who say essentially that Asian Americans are disadvantaged by these rules because they are overrepresented when it comes to academic excellence?
Well, again, there's several factors that universities consider. It's not just about whether or not you can bubble in the right answer on a standardized test score, which already has disparate impact effects against people of color, Native American students, Black students, Latino students. And so they're trying to balance all of this, but there's absolutely no evidence. And in fact, our case with Harvard is co-counseled by the Asian Americans Advancing Justice. There were hundreds of Asian American organizations that cited in favor of affirmative action because they understand that race still matters in America and that nobody is being excluded or admitted solely because of their race.
There is a provision that allows applicants to write a letter to discuss how race could affect their case. Why is that not enough?
Well, I think the fact is that, some students don't choose to discuss their racialized experiences, and so they shouldn't necessarily have to be burdened with that. Again, when you're talking about America, especially at the University of North Carolina, a university that for over 200 years fought to exclude Black students and was founded to educate the children of slave owners, at a university like that, it has struggled to enroll Black students significantly, whereas they enroll over thousands of students each year, but they've struggled to even enroll 100 Black men in many years. And so it is trying to achieve greater opportunity for students across races and ethnicities, but this decision will make it much tougher.
So your group argues for affirmative action when it comes to race, but what about class? Because there are plenty of talented students who come from poor white backgrounds who don't get a look in at these universities.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. And this is not an either or, it's an and. Of course, socioeconomic status should be considered, and it is being considered, but it's not a replacement for race. It's like many of our clients who testified. There were no students who testified for the plaintiff in this case, by the way, but the students who testified on our side of the case, spoke incredibly powerful about how when they walk on campus, when they walk into stores, when they go and apply for jobs, people aren't asking them and judging them based on how much income their family makes or that they make. they're judging them based, on their race. And so oftentimes, those stereotypes and implicit and explicit biases are expressed against them, again, not because of their class, but because of their race. And so, the research shows that class alone doesn't get universities where they need to go in terms of diversity. And so trying to abandon race now, especially at this time in America when things are so divided, we need these types of policies that help bring us closer together.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about that. You say that America is currently divided. We know that this decision split Republicans and Democrats, with senior Republicans welcoming the decision and the US president criticising it. So does this say something more broadly about the fracturing of society there?
Well, it certainly says something about the fracturing of our court, right? Because in the past, we have had both Republican and Democrat judges uphold affirmative action. Just 7 years ago, they upheld the UT affirmative action case. So, this affirmative action itself wasn't dividing the country. What has divided the country is an extremist right that wants to ensure white supremacy, power, and privilege. And they don't want to stand in line next to others who don't necessarily look like them or speak like them. But that's what America's about. That, we should be about those opportunities that live in our foundation and our ideals, but we have significantly struggled to achieve those.
David Hinojosa, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us.
Thanks so much.